principle that we can get from the life of Jesus. And we see that he feared God. I mean, during the end of time, during his trial, he did things showing that he based his life on fear of God. Now, this one is a big one. Learning how to do what? Forgive. Remember when he was on the cross? He said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So many of us are struggling because we have not forgiven. Whether it be our mother, the mean things she did, or our father, the things he did, or our friends and how they hurt us. And lack of forgiveness is just killing us as a people, as Christians. And so we must learn how to forgive. Forgiveness is not just about saying the words. It is an active process in which you make a conscious decision to let go of negative feelings, whether the person deserves it or not. Can that sometimes be hard to do humanly? I tell you, one of the hardest people to forgive sometimes, areas that I've worked in. I used to work with people who were molested. And I worked with one lady who was molested by doctors, by her uncles, by her brothers. I mean, just, we call it repeat victimization. Just molested over and over. She went to counseling for 10 years. Do you know when she started to heal? When she started to forgive. And when she came to me, by that time the Lord started changing how I worked with people. Because before I changed, if she had come to me, I would have started doing things like, okay, I want you to close your eyes and imagine one of the people who hurt you bad sitting in front of you. What would you want to tell them? How angry do you want to? I would encourage her to get her anger out and to write bad things. And that's how I used to work with sexually abused people as a Christian. I didn't know better. But when the Lord changed my perspective, I said to her, you've heard about this for 10 years from counselors. Let's do something different. Let's talk about forgiveness. And she immediately said, I can't forgive these men. They've hurt me. There's no way they don't deserve forgiveness. So I just worked with her slowly, after talking to her a few times. And she started going back to church by God's grace. And she told me after a few minutes, she said, I feel more peace than I have felt all my life just by learning how to forgive. Does this happen overnight? No. But you need God's help to be able to forgive those who has hurt you. Researchers have compared forgiving people to people who are not so forgiving. What they have found is that those who don't have forgiving tendencies have less of a buffer against the effects of stress. So if you're a person who is not forgiving, you are going to be affected by stress more than people who are forgiving. Why do you think that's the case? Pick your brain again. Why do you think people who have forgiving tendencies have more of a buffer against stress than those who don't have forgiving tendencies?
Because they're not building it all up inside. So they're just dealing with everything each time it happens, and then it's nothing let go.
Amen. They're dealing with it as it happens, and they're not letting it build inside. Yes. Did you have something? Trying to think of something.
Well, I know that forgiveness frees you up.
Yes.
You're the prisoner.
Yes.
But it's a process.
It is.
And you have to learn how to do that. It's not something that comes easily.
That's right, and it doesn't come from
Because
people.
usually in our minds we think, well, they don't deserve it.
That's right.
They don't get it.
Right.
But it's not about that really. Whether or not, like you said, they're good or bad.
Right.
Whether they deserve it or not, we need to let go.
We do. It's for us.
For our help.
Yes. My husband says this, and you probably heard this before. When we hold in bitterness and hostility and resentment, it's like someone drinking poison, hoping the other person will die.
I've heard that before.
So when we do that, we're actually drinking the poison. Oh, I can't stand that person. Oh, they've done this to me. We're dying, but the other person is not. So one of the ways that we need to start to take care of our health and our mental health is to learn how to forgive. Research also shows that when psychologists have done forgiveness interventions among adolescents and adults, it was effective in increasing positive feelings and reducing depression, anger, hostility, as well as stress and distress. Psychologists are actually starting to realize that we need to teach people how to forgive. In fact, I read an article by a psychologist recently that said people who spend time blaming their problems on their parents are going to be more mentally depressed and anxious than those who recognize their parents were human beings who made mistakes. I was so glad to hear that because in my training I learned that we should blame parents. If you have problems with depression, if you're angry, if you have this issue, it's because of how your parents treated you. But psychologists, some of them are now starting to turn that around and say, no, you will get more mental health by recognizing, my mom did the best she could. She didn't know about how to love me. She didn't know about how to hug me or to help me. She was a person who was a human being with frailties and insecurities. And psychologists are saying, some of them are saying now, when we start to take that perspective toward our parents, we're more mentally healthy. I'm so glad to hear that. The Bible's been saying that all along. Forgiveness.
Instead of being a victim, you're in a process of healing.
Amen.
By facing what's actually happened.
Amen. Amen. Instead of being a victim, you're in the process of healing by facing what's happening. One researcher, listen to this, look at this study. One researcher asked people to think about someone who had hurt, mistreated, or offended them. While they thought about that past offense, look what happened. They were monitored. It was found that their blood pressure and heart rates increased. Their faces became tense. They sweated more. Ruminating about their grudges was stressful. It made them feel angry, sad, anxious, and less in control. Just thinking about the person who hurt them. These subjects were then asked to try to empathize with their offenders or imagine forgiving them. When they practiced forgiveness, all of those things went down. The heart rate went down. The blood pressure went down. Just thinking about that. Isn't that amazing how strong the mind is? Instead of spending time about this person hurt me and I just don't know what I'm going to do, I'll never get over this, spending time thinking about how they could put themselves in their place and then forgiving them actually had a physiological effect on them. So forgiveness is important, and that's why when Peter came to Jesus and said, Lord, how oft shall my brother sin against me and I forgive him? Till 7 times? Jesus saith unto him, I say not unto thee, until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. You know what, at the end of this, you know what I would love for you to be able to take away from all that I'm saying? I want you to start looking at things in the Bible and saying, this is not only for my spiritual good, but it's for my emotional and mental health good as well. Everything that God has told us to do. I have a whole new thing on the Three Angels message now that I've studied this thing about fearing God, for example. When it says in Revelation 14:6, fear God and give glory to him. I used to only think about that in terms of the end of time. We need to fear God so we can stand up and be strong. But now I'm like, God is actually wanting me to fear him because it's better for me in terms of my mental health. Does that make sense? Fearing God actually helps my mental health. Giving glory to him actually helps my mental health. Now, with all of this, what do you think is the main problem that will prevent us from being more humble, being more forgiving, fearing God, not worrying, being compassionate? There's one word that has 4 letters that starts with an S that makes this hard for us. What is it? Self. Self is the main reason we're not more compassionate, we're not more humble, we're not more forgiving, because of self. And so that's why Jesus said, if any man will come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. That's a mental health benefit in just denying self. One author said, people who deny self, they're not hurt by criticism. They're not affected if someone's more popular than they are. They're not affected if someone has a nicer house, nicer clothes, because self is not in the picture. All of those things come about when self is alive. But when we deny self, what other people do don't affect us as much. Does that make sense? And so denying self is one of the best ways that we're going to learn how to implement all these different things that I talked about with mental health principles from Jesus. I'm sure I can spend 2 days talking with you about mental health principles from Jesus. I just picked a few that I thought were real significant and that the research kind of supported. And I wanted to share that with you. And that's why Paul says what? I die daily. Now let's get practical. You know, we throw these texts out all the time. I want you to get practical with me. Give me some practical ways we can deny self and die daily. Tell me some things we can do practically. Because we throw these texts out, and I have a thing about not applying these things practically. Give me a practical example of dying to self or denying self as we're dealing with people. Yes, this is Tatiana. Hold on. If someone criticizes us, we just forgive them. That takes a lot of denying self. Yes. What else? Give me another example. Yes, thank you.
The serenity prayer.
Yes,
I
say
also
it.
let him turn your eyes on Jesus.
Amen. Say the serenity prayer.
God grant me serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Amen. Amen. And what was the second thing you said?
Oh, turn your eyes upon Jesus, like him.
Yes. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. Yes, my sister.
Think about something that you could do for someone else.
Say that louder.
Think about something you can do for someone else that day, not just about what you plan for yourself, but what can I do to make somebody else's load lighter today?
Yes.
Instead of just projecting yourself or what you think you should be doing or interrelating with people, you just feel something and get a bigger sense of the picture
Yes.
than your little puzzle of yourself.
That's right. Very good. You know, in little ways we can deny self. I see potlucks as a real barometer of self. Really. The line is formed, and certain people are rushing to get to the front. That's a test right there. There's just little things we can do to deny self. I remember I was with a pastor one time, we were somewhere, and everybody was rushing to food, and he just stood to the back. And I said, Pastor Seth, aren't you going to get any food? And I was so rebuked because I was one of those who rushed to the front. Honestly. He says, no, I'm just going to wait till everyone else has got their food. I was so humbled by that. And so it's just little ways that we can deny self that will help us in our mental health. Christ, during his life on earth, sought his Father daily for fresh supplies of needed grace. And from this communion with God, he went forth to strengthen and bless others. Though he is the Son of God, he strengthens his faith by prayer, and by communion with heaven gathers to himself power to resist evil and to minister to the needs of men. Prayer was very important in Christ's life, and I put this up there to help us to realize these characteristics that I talked about will not come by just me saying, okay, when I leave this place, I'm going to be more compassionate, I'm going to be more humble, I'm going to be more forgiving. No, we need to be praying more and asking God for these characteristics, and we also have to know how to submit to Christ. When we submit ourselves to Christ, the heart is united with his heart. The will is merged in his will. The mind becomes one with his mind. The thoughts are brought into captivity to him. We live his life. Is all of this easy, brothers and sisters? No. But we can make an intentional decision to start doing these things, knowing, to whom much is given, much is required. Now that you know these things, God is going to require you to make intentional decisions to be more compassionate, more humble, more forgiving. And so my prayer today is that we will have the attitude of Christ in submitting and praying for these things in our lives. How many of us are committed to doing that? All right. Remember, every time we put our hands up to these types of things, the angels write them down. So each one of you who put your hands up, God is going to look for you to ask for his grace to be more humble. Ask for his grace to be more compassionate, to be more forgiving, and all of these things that we talked about. Grace is so important. Sister Tatiana shared with me how for her, I don't know if you mind me telling, I hope you don't mind me telling her, she didn't actually reform her, but she said when she started to grow in her walk with the Lord is when she realized more and more of God's grace. And we need to understand more and more and experience more of God's grace in our lives to help us to have these wonderful characteristics that will give us spiritual strength and help us to be more mentally healthy down here. Was this helpful to you all? I pray that you will put forth in your mind to develop some of these characteristics so we can be more like Jesus and have better mental health on this earth. Amen? Any questions before we take a break for our next session? Any questions? Yes, my brother.
I just want to
Add.
the word that you use,
Yes.
intentional.
Intentional, yes.
You cannot be passive on this.
Amen.
Pray that Jesus.
Very good.
It has to be intentional.
Yes.
You have to have that intention that, okay, I will go ahead and do this. Together, of course, with God.
Yes.
Because he's the source.
Amen.
But do not be passive.
Amen.
I like the word intentional.
Yes. Thank you, my brother. Thank you. We cannot be passive with this. We have to be active and intentional. Thank you for that comment. Any other comments, questions, thoughts? So everything was pretty clear. All right. Well, We'll be praying for each other that we will do these things for this earth and to be able to make it to that kingdom above. Amen?
Amen.
All right, we can take maybe a 5-minute break. We'll walk around or something, and we'll start with our next presentation. God bless each of you.
No.